So one of the things I want to start doing is showing off in high detail some of the areas of my city. And so I thought we'd start with the area that I refer to as the Mushroom Creek camping area. So let's dive into this area in some detail. So let's talk about kind of why this area even exists, because it really doesn't make a lot of sense next to the city. And really the main reason that the city, or that this portion of the city exists, is to accommodate this loop back on the train, on the train track. I had originally thought about maybe covering over this whole area with like a raised city portion, but I just didn't like that. And at the time, I didn't have any of the nature part of my city built. I didn't have any of the medieval area. I didn't have any of the pirate stuff, and so I thought, well, maybe this is a great place to put some of these sets. So obviously this is the treehouse in the autumn configuration. This is the A-frame cabin, which was always in the autumn configuration. And then again, at the point that I built this, I did not have the medieval section yet. And so this was a way to use this forest hideout gift with purchase. And back there in the corner is the Majesto's workshop gift with purchase. And so this was just kind of a fun way to place these sets somewhere in my city, because otherwise there's not really anywhere that these sets were going to fit. And so it's just kind of worked out that they fit within this tight little turn, right? This is only, I think, basically a 3x3 base plate area. And so it needed to be kind of compact, but I wanted it to be detailed and not just a general throw away space. And so you can see as we get down here closer that you can see pretty quickly why it's called Mushroom Creek. There's tons of mushrooms here along the creek bed. The little mushroom guys. I put some of the D&D figs, the acorn guys, some forestmen. Obviously some forestmen here with the forestmen hideout. They're having a little archery contest, and again, there's a little path back here for Majesto's workshop, and going on into there, there's another wizard visiting, right? And so that was just kind of a fun way to add that. And then of course we got some people hiding out or camping out in the A-frame. Sorry, focusing on the wrong things. There's so much closer to the camera than the A-frame. So there's some people hanging out in the A-frame, some people coming down from the treehouse. There is the canoe that they can use in the creek. There's another one, the D&D figs, just kind of trying to find his way through. You can see there's some more mushrooms back in there. And then obviously there's kind of a pretty neat dividing wall, and then the wall going up to the city back there. So I thought this was just kind of a fun way to not only just kind of show off these sets, but kind of work them in together, because I think they work fantastic together. But then also work in a creek bed and kind of work through a lot of stuff. I learned so much building this creek bed that I have used elsewhere now, including this is the first time I recessed down into the mills plate. This was the first time I had done this creek tiling with the gradient pattern. This is all, again, long before I did the pirate area, right? This is long before the pirate area. Some otters in there. The other thing is that this all lights up, right? And so I learned so much about having to leave area between here and here so that I could pass wires through. And so that's why most of the medieval area is actually 2 bricks high on the mills plate, so that I can actually raise the water bed up off the ground so I can pass wires under. So again, I learned so much when I did this. Obviously, the trees are borrowed straight from the A-frame cabin. There's more of them. I added on to them and kind of expanded them, varied them up a little bit, but they're all kind of the same general build process as the A-frame cabin trees. And I'm going to zoom in here, and you'll see like there's the wiring stuff, but you don't really see some of this wiring stuff when you step back like you do when you get in close, and there's just no way to kind of get around that. But also the wires sometimes add a little bit of like extra detail onto the trees. Like it's almost like there's like branches and stuff kind of coming down around them and add a little bit of texture on there. This was also the first time I did this kind of like plating, this kind of staggered wedge plate down to the creek bed. So again, I learned a whole lot when I did this. But let's turn off the lights and let's take a look at this all lit up. All right, so here it is all lit up. This was also the other first time that I used any sort of flicker effects or anything like that. And so I learned a lot about doing that as well. And you can see there's all different types of colors on the mushrooms, and it really kind of brings the mushrooms to life. I'm not gonna lie. I think the mushrooms kind of blend into just kind of forest bed until it really lights up. I also kind of learned about how many lights I needed to add to trees to kind of light up the area. Again, this was really kind of one of the first kind of vegetative areas that I worked on in a grander scale. The only thing before this was the city garden, but that was already kind of pre-described and kind of fenced in a way. And so this is kind of really the first time that I kind of got to dive into some of these things on a real kind of functional scale, and kind of play around with them a little bit, right? And so, you know, I had to work through all the lighting situations and all kinds of problems that, you know, you don't really think about till you have to actually do it. I did use the Game of Bricks lighting kits for both the treehouse and the A-frame. Everything else was kind of custom lighting, if you will. And on this end, I was still using the Game of Bricks effects boards, which I no longer use. I've moved over to the Brick Stuff effects boards, which I think are actually a lot better. But you can see I kind of carried the mushroom theme over here to this side as well. Here's some custom horsemen, or not horsemen, like forestmen kind of esque figs. But yeah, this is probably one of my favorite areas as far as what I did with lighting. Just because there is so much kind of color going on down here at such a low angle. Let me see if I can get you in a little closer here. Back here as well too. See, there's a wolf, one of the new wolf pack CMFs down there. And again, kind of a top-down view. You see the canopy's not super dense, but just dense enough to kind of give that forested look. Because if this was actually truly as forested as real forests were, you probably wouldn't see any of the figs or be able to see any of the kind of details down at the ground level. But anyways, hopefully this was fun, and I intend to do one of these for each of my little sections of the city, kind of as we go, and hopefully they're insightful. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments, and like and subscribe to stay tuned for some more stuff. Thanks, y'all.